Okay, so for this, you're gonna see me like kind of in and out, looking at it, taking a step back from my work, seeing how it's coming along, and uh, I'm doing wet on dry. I'm not. You can do wet on wet, which is good too. You get a lot of nice like textures and stuff like that, uh, like how it blends and moves around the paper. For this part right here, I just kind of threw everything together, and I didn't really um, like I had a vision for this. I had a vision of like I wanted it to look magical and everything, but I I knew what colors I wanted, and I'm like, okay, let's just do this. And I threw some water, some pigment into some water. Uh, I added more water to the pigment, and and just went for it. I just go for what I don't know. Like it's hard to explain like what I'm doing. Um, Sometimes I have a vision and sometimes I don't. Most cases I do have a vision when I'm doing this. But I really wanted the purples and everything, the blues and the pinks to stand out. But all in all, just to give it, like a really nice bright color, a little more like colorful and something that feels good on the eyes and to stay away from a lot of dark colors. Sometimes I'll use ink, black ink, and I'll do a black, background. But for this, I wanted it to be, magical, and right here. So I partially like let the paper dry, not too much, just enough so I don't want harsh lines when I'm painting. So again, I'll use a little bit of water, um, and not too much pigment in the paint. And when I go through and I'm adding shadowing and stuff like that, I, I'll layer it on top. Um, and if you see how I'm like kind of moving the brush, I'm not being perfect with it. I don't want to make it seem like it's all straight line coloring book style. I want it to look like it has, some texture and, you can see the layers building up. And so, okay, here, um, I'm taking one of my markers and I'm adding some shading. And I'm lightly touching it to the paper because the markers can get messed up on canvas, watercolor paper, and I noticed that it'll pick up too. Like if you're on that spot too long, it'll pick up the color. So you don't want to stay on that color too long. So you just want to kind of lightly. That's what I'm doing. I'm using the chisel side. I don't know. It just works better for me. Um, it handles better, whatever side you want to use. But yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm just adding some depth, with shadows in it. So, and here you see I'm layering and I'm just adding like, you know, different like shapes and stuff and just adding like textures around, to give it that illusion, that this is um, a magical being, and I had this like image in my head and I'm like, I gotta get it out somehow. And But yeah, that's what I'm doing right here. Just adding some colors, being careful, not pushing too hard on the paper. And this right here is where I started, adding like kind of like the stars and just wanting a glowing effect around everything. Um, I just take chalk and I blend it into the paper really good, and then I take a paintbrush and then I just blend it out. And you'll see after the layers. And then this is an acrylic marker, so I'm going in here, adding more details, just kind of layering over top, which I really love these acrylic markers. They're pretty nice. Um, as long as you don't go too thick with them. They can be like chalky, and yeah, but they're pretty nice, especially for like highlighting. And here I'm coming in with my pencils, and now I'm adding more detail. So I'm adding hair detail, and that's when I'm gonna go through the whole thing, and I'm gonna start, after everything's dry, it's got to be dry, and I try to keep a sharp pencil depending on what I'm doing. If I want a softer look, I won't have such a sharp pencil. But for this, I'm doing like some little, hair textures and details. Um, like colored pencils, I don't know. It just, and watercolor, it kind of reminds me of when you're um, in a tattoo shop. I used to be an apprentice at a tattoo shop, and I've trained for it, but it wasn't something that I liked because um, the the needle to the skin, I couldn't do it. Like I did do a bunch of tattoos, which was good. It turned out really nice, but it wasn't for me. And I do own a tattoo gun, but and the blending, all of this, I'm adding color. Then I add some highlights, a little bit of highlights here and there. Not too much, just a little. The white pencil's good too for some blending, and if you have too harsh of a line, the white pencil. I mean, I know they have blending pencils, but I like the white one too because it helps to kind of highlight where you're doing it. And again, acrylic marker, and I'm going through adding some little like fin tail details. Just adding, it's all about like layer, at least for me it is like I just like a lot of texture, you know, and I don't know, even if it's not perfect, as long as the idea is portrayed, it doesn't matter. I like it. I like how I do my work. Sometimes, I don't always like my stuff and I have to work on it, but just like if you're wanting to do it, don't be so hard on yourself. Just practice. You'll get there. And then this too, here is, you'll see the tail when I'm talking about. And here we are. There's a tail that had all the blobby water. And yeah, just keep adding texture, keep playing with your watercolors and experimenting, adding layers, textures. I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm getting there. And I hope you guys liked this video, though. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just ask.